L's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. Mike, good morning. Let's start with LSU. I'm going to do this until they hire a coach. What are you hearing? What is the latest on Scott Woodward's coaching search in Baton Rouge?
I said this the day after they fired Coach O, and nothing's changed. I think Mel Tucker from Michigan State is the number one guy on their list. Um, People in high places at LSU, along with money people, believe he's the guy, and I've heard nothing to change my mind. I've read all these articles, Lane Kiffin, Lincoln Riley, Jimbo Fisher. I don't believe one of them.
Okay.
I think it's Tucker. I do think certainly there's a connection with Jimbo Fisher and Scott Woodward, and that there's no question about it. But LSU's been down this road already with Jimbo. Okay, not once, not twice. This would reach the third time. He's become the ultimate runaway bride head coach for LSU. Okay, you walk down the aisle a little bit with him, and then all of a sudden, poof, gone. He's got a great situation at A&M. A&M's got a hell of a lot more money than LSU does to throw at him. He has got a recruiting class coming in that is absolutely awesome. He's in a state where you don't have to leave. You don't have to go too far to get all your recruits, and I don't see it happening. I think the guy from day one has been Mel Tucker, and again, hey, you got to write something when they paying you to write articles.
Sure.
And do shows. I get it. Nothing against it, but I've been told he is their number one guy.
Okay, could there be let's take Jimbo out. So let's go Mel Tucker. Could there be somebody out there that Scott Woodward is also, like you said, Scott at Washington, Scott at A&M. He's made now at LSU in women's hoops and baseball. But this is actually a sport people care about. So is there somebody out there that you think he's maybe Mel Tucker could be somewhat of a smokescreen, and there could be one more big name out there for LSU?
Scott has always, and he has explained this to me, I've always swung for the fences. And part of this is I want the coach to tell me no. What I don't know is, has he been told no? Well, by other coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And so see that's part of it. Yeah, you can go big game hunting. That don't mean you come back with anything to put on the wall.
Okay.
And I think he's reached out. There's no question in my mind he's reached out to Jimbo and reached out to Lincoln Riley. I would be surprised if he didn't. But I think he's got his answer.
So
and it's not yes.
All right, so take Jimbo out. Who do you think he's going to make tell him no? Lincoln Riley, Joe Brady?
I think Lincoln Riley, to me, he would have been, because once I started getting the feeling that wasn't going to stay around much longer, first thought was Lincoln Riley. I've always felt his next move would be to go into the NFL. But would there be a school that would intrigue him? And I look at Louisiana with the same reasons Nick Saban left Michigan State to come here. Per capita, the amount of NFL players Louisiana produces, tremendous. It's in the top three, 4 out of the last 5 years. Number one this year, per capita. So that's certainly intriguing. He's a pitch and catch coach. There's a tremendous amount of pitch and catch talent in the state of Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
In 6 years, they have produced 78 Division I wide receivers.
Oh, my goodness. That is
So, uh,
incredible.
and I wrote this a few years back. We have so many of the camps here, and man, when they would blow that whistle, and okay, quarterbacks go here, linemen go here, and wide receivers, y'all go over here. Man, you better not be in front of that wide receiver line because you're gonna get run over. I mean, it's like cattle. I mean, they stampede uh, in that spot, and so I could see dramatic change in that. Louisiana had really been part of a run-oriented state, high school-wise, for so long, and even Peyton Manning noticed it and tried to change it, and I think he does. He should get some credit for it because of the Manning camp. It was his idea. It was not Archie's to have the Manning camp, and he felt that that was a big part of it. That was many years ago when he was a high school senior. So you can see the amount of talent coming from here, and now the quarterbacks are getting caught up. You see more and more now the quarterback catching up to the wide receiver position, and in 2023 that recruiting class, I think you will probably see 6 Division One signed quarterbacks from the state of Louisiana.
Good grief. Mike Detillier on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line.
And led by
Mike,
Arch.
I don't think
Arch is the guy leading the way.
I want to get into that in just a second. To me, Mel Tucker's not going to get the fan base all hot and bothered. That's just my – I mean, he may be great, Mike. It's still a very short head coaching track record.
Nick Saban didn't either. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. We talk about this a lot. I know Bobby was asking me about it, and he said, you were doing sports talk. I wasn't back then. How was it with Nick? It was 50-50 with Saban. The big complaint was, wait a minute, we're hiring a guy from the Midwest who's never coached in the South, who's got no Southern ties, has never won more than 9 games as a college head coach at Michigan State, did not win the Big Ten anytime he was there. And so, man, we heard it. I was doing it at that time with Buddy Diliberto. And we finally, Mark Emmert decides he's going to come on. I think he had enough of it. He was, at that time, the chancellor at LSU. And he made the comment that, hey, this is my decision. If it goes wrong, you can blame me. But I've gotten more negative comments than positive about Saban. I literally fell out the chair that, these were LSU fans complaining at that point. Now, you can't find a one of them today that will admit it. It's almost like, they don't leave any footprints in the sand. They all disappeared. And, the comments about Nick at that time, it was correct. He doesn't have any Southern ties. He had never been a Southern coach. He had not won the Big Ten Conference at Michigan State. And then he gave the press conference. And then you said, man, you know what? We might have something here. Because he was eloquent about why he left Michigan State, about why he came to LSU, and his game plan. And I vividly remember that the calls negatively towards Saban gradually started to end. You heard it. And, you could have the feel he had won the room. But early on, Bo, I'm going to be honest, it was 50-50 shot that, man, LSU's blown this again.
I think Lincoln, if Scott Woodward is as good as we think he is at recruiting, what he did at Washington, what he did at A&M, what he's done at LSU, his political background, which you and I have talked about, then I think he could land Lincoln Riley. But But who knows? Maybe he goes Mel Tucker first. That's what's interesting. Does he make Lincoln Riley, Joe Brady, Jimbo Fisher tell him no emphatically? Maybe
But
James.
Joe Brady is really not in the mix here. Joe,
But just PR-wise,
and
Mike, I mean, you know how it is. You're also placating to your fan base, right? So just the
yeah,
fan base
but
knowing,
Joe,
hey, we put out feelers. Joe wants to stay in the NFL. Everybody's like, okay, good. Scott
yeah,
Woodward checked that box. You know what I'm saying?
and he's not going to publicly say that, but we already know the type of kind of recruiter he is. That by now that phone call has been made. Okay, it has been made to a Lincoln Riley, to a Jimbo Fisher. Joe, he don't have to make the phone call. Joe's openly admitted that he thinks his future is in the NFL. Joe, who I think is an outstanding pitching catch coach, is not great as a recruiter. That was not his forte because he had always told me, man, I don't know how Ed does this 24/7, 365. He's consumed with recruiting constantly. And that sort of told me, hey, his deal is going to be more on the pro side because I think as a head coach, you have to be immersed in it. You can't let someone else do your recruiting. You got to be the guy. And I look at Jimbo and Lincoln, and when Ed was here, and Nick before, and Nick now, and Kirby Smart, as the CEO, that's the big part of your program: recruiting players, recruiting coaches.
No doubt. All right, Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans, on the Out of Bounds show, brought to you by Sound and Communications, soundcomav.com. All right, Mike. Arch Manning. I know it's still somewhat early. What's the scuttlebutt? What are you hearing? Who are the three leaders in the clubhouse for Arch Manning?
I've always felt this, and it has not moved, that it's Clemson, Texas, Georgia. In no particular order, but I've always felt those three would be there for him. I know he ain't going to LSU. I mean, just a family situation, feelings toward LSU and everything. That would have surprised me, even though a lot of his classmates at Isadora Newman are going to go to LSU. Okay, but I don't think that's going to sway him.
I think, though, Mike, hold on. If LSU were to hire an offensive coach with the numbers that you have gone over with us for years, including the one that you just dropped, 6 years, 78 wide receivers, it would be fascinating to see if Lincoln Riley or another big offensive name could come in there and at least get in the hunt with what you consider is the top three for Arch Manning. Like a Lincoln Riley.
In the hunt, maybe, but I know Ed was the first guy to recruit him. That 2019 season sort of has a linger effect with quarterbacks and receivers. But I don't see Arch going to LSU. There's certain pressures to go to Ole Miss one way or another because
Sure.
His dad was there and Uncle Eli was there and grandfather, and so you're going to feel some natural tie to that school. But it's also you walking into some big footsteps at Ole Miss. That you carting the name already, okay? You carting a little bit more water than the normal person to go there. I've always felt Ole Miss was around, but I don't know about them being a top three school for him. Alabama, I know, has put on a huge pitch in the last 3 or 4 months. Big pitch to Arch. But the people that were there early were Dabo at Clemson, Kirby Smart at Georgia, and Sark. Man, if I didn't know no better, I'd swear he's a Louisiana resident. He spends more time here than he does in Texas. And I think at the end, it's going to come down to Clemson, Georgia.
Interesting. All right. Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds show. Mike, the game of the week for us is A&M at Ole Miss. And A&M may be hitting their stride. I mean, they're phenomenal on defense. They're solid on offense. Ole Miss has slowed down just a little bit because of injuries, but they're still dangerous. How do you see it? A&M at Ole Miss this weekend.
I think the emotion and the talent of Corral gives them a better than fighting chance. But other than Georgia, that A&M defense is pretty doggone good. Their front seven is really good. They get after you, and they do a nice job stopping the run. Secondary, that's another story. Because I think if they can't get a pass rush, you can do some business on that secondary, and that's where it sort of opens things up for Ole Miss. If you can get around that major pass rush, they're a big physical unit, as big or bigger than Georgia. I don't know if they're more athletic, but they got a big front seven. And, again, it's going to be about secondary, how they match up against Ole Miss. Offensively, Jimbo loves to run the ball. I mean, that's just always been part of his forte. He considers himself the quarterback whisperer, and he's done a great job with quarterbacks. But he loves to run the football. He's got a huge offensive line, and he does set up the passing game with the run. There's no doubt. That's always been part of his mantra, if it was when he was coordinator here at LSU, when he was head coach at Florida State, and now at A&M. I see a close game, but I think A&M wins this game. I just think that they're a more talented team, and for Ole Miss to win it, A&M's going to have to help them. They're going to have to turn the ball over.
Boy, I can't wait. It's going to be wild in Oxford Saturday night. Mike Detillier.
It will be. Great one.
I know. It's going to be fun, man. Mike Elko against Matt Corral. Yes, I'll take it all day long. Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. He joins us on the Out of Bounds show, brought to you by Sound and Communications, soundcomav.com. All right, Mike, I've got a few minutes here. I think Dan Mullen's track record is pretty unbelievable. It's extremely difficult to win in Starkville, Oxford, Fayetteville. Dan did a great job. Won 29 games his first 3 years in Florida. He hadn't forgotten how to coach, but things are kind of falling apart. How do you see it in Gainesville right now, Mike?
Man, there's a lot of heat, and you hearing it from different circles that, he's thrown his old offensive line coach under the bus. Grantham's taking the wheels too. That, hey, you might survive another year, but it's some of the comments he's made has even been strange about recruiting and everything else. And is it not the right fit for Dan in Gainesville? Because, man, it's not about talent. I did the numbers that the number one rivalry game in college football when it comes down to talent in the last 10 years is LSU-Alabama. They produced 161 NFL players in 10 years. The number two game is LSU-Florida. And so there's tremendous talent all around Dan. It just has not worked. And you can start to see some of the things falling around him that's not good. And people that at one time were the biggest Dan Mullen fans in Gainesville, you can't find them anymore. They're backed off, that this program is not headed in the right direction. And so, there's a lot of powers to be at Florida. And a lot of people feel, hey, it does us no good to keep him around for another year. Can he hold that off? And it's how they finish. I think he's in big trouble. I think he's in big trouble in Gainesville.
Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds Show, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. Mike, thank you so much. Can't wait to see what all happens this weekend with A&M and Ole Miss, and then, of course, with the LSU job. We'll catch up again next week. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, bud.
Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by Sound and Communication, soundcomav.com, Blake. AV systems for your businesses, churches, and sports facilities. All right, all over the Southeast, including Texas A&M. Soundcomav.com, the leader in audio and visual equipment, conference room sound, and video systems, PA systems for your high school, your college, your junior college, all at soundcomav.com, and that is Sound and Communications. Flawless video presentation, making it easy for your performance or presentation to shine. Their experienced technicians deliver clear, crisp sound, powered by soundcomav.com, Sound and Communications. It's National Louisiana Day.
That's right.
It's kind of cool that we have Mike Detillier on every Tuesday, and it landed on a Tuesday. It's also a Taco Tuesday, but let's say with National Louisiana Day, you think immediately of, well, you think of New Orleans, the quarter, gumbo, redfish. You think of St. Charles. You think of where Blake has stumbled around Bourbon Street. You think of Irene's. You think of the dives that you love for a great Tito's Vodka Bloody Mary or an unbelievable shrimp po' boy. So that's kind of cool on National Louisiana Day. We'll give a shout-out to Drago's, which started in Metairie, Louisiana, years and years ago, family-owned. They also have the Drago's in the Hilton downtown, right by Caesars, right? And charbroiled oysters, seafood gumbo, delicious fried catfish on a po' boy with just the right cocktail sauce. Pair it with an Abita Purple Haze or an Abita Amber, straight out of Abita Springs, Louisiana. Great beer. National Louisiana Day, presented by the Seafood Gumbo and Charbroiled Oysters at Drago's Seafood Restaurant and Oyster Bar. Hour number 3 coming up. We'll have Michael Katz, straight out of L.A., Ole Miss insider, Southern Cal grad. Katz will join us at 9:15 on the Out of Bounds Show. Welcome in. Good morning. It's going to be a fun week and a crazy one in Oxford.